Rasty McGibbon with Dr. Alan Murdoch. Al, thanks for coming on.
Hey, good to be here.
You know what? It feels like just about a year ago we were sitting down doing this exact same thing.
Yep.
The first segment I did this year was talking about my 20 years of involvement, but really pale in comparison to how long you've been doing this. Take me back to when it all started.
Oh, man, alive. I'm from Canada originally, and I went to Bemidji State for a couple of years, 67 through 69. And then I went to Iowa State, and that's when I got involved in this. And I kept building up all the other schools around us. First thing you know, we had other schools that were interested. They built a new building at that time, Hilton Coliseum, had seating for 15,000 people. I said, well, we got to put hockey in there. Hockey, what's that? I said, you just put in a refrigeration unit and go from there.
Right.
Well, that's going to cost some money. I said, how much? 100,000. They were just making up numbers, so I decided to go along with it.
Sure.
And
it probably was a lot more than that, wasn't it?
At that time, for $100,000, we put 10 miles of piping in the floor.
Really?
Refrigeration unit, the whole 9 yards, the boards, the plexiglass. I went to the Iowa State Foundation. They raised funds there, a lot of money.
Yeah.
I said, you got any donors you want me to see to try to get ice in Hilton Coliseum? Well, Chicago Blackhawks have a lot of fans in Chicago. There's a guy over there that got his degree in engineering from Iowa State. Go see him. So I drove to Chicago, talked to him. He said, how much do you need? I said, well, you make a check out for $100,000, we're good to go. He made out a damn check for $100,000 on the spot. I drove it back to Ames, Iowa, gave it to the people there, and they're going, holy crap.
Yeah, that's probably not what they were going, but anyway, yeah.
This is
a kid's show, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's kind of how it all started. And, for a long time, we played on outdoor ice to get ice time.
Yeah.
Because Hilton Coliseum, basketball, wrestling, everything. And,
so let me ask you, one thing in all the conversations that you and I have had, there is a can-do attitude that is there. Where did it come from? I know your dad was a runner.
Yeah.
Did it come from your dad? Is it something that you just picked up? Like where did that originate?
Yeah, I would have to give my dad credit for that. I've got a book out now too, and it talks about my dad a lot.
Yeah.
In the book, and how the bigger the opponent was, harder they fell.
And your dad was a runner, right? From Scotland?
He was a runner.
Is that what you told me before?
Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so I mean, did your dad instill in you to don't take no as an answer? Did he instill in you to dream big? Did he, the bigger they come, the harder they fall? Like what of those?
Yeah. The biggest thing was you can beat anybody, and you just decide that. Wear them down, and in a race, he was training with the Scottish Harriers. He was the captain of the Scottish Harriers in Scotland, and the Olympics was coming up in Paris. And he never included that in any of the talks with me or other family members. There was just races all over the place, and one was going to be in Paris, and top two, got to go. And so he was in a race to qualify, and he's in like 4th or 5th place, and he could see the 1st and 2nd place runners ahead of him. That wasn't impossible to him. And he ran and he caught the 2nd place runner. Then he ran harder and caught the 1st place runner. By the time they hit the finish line, one of the runners caught him and he dropped back to 3rd. So he never got to go to Paris.
Right.
Instead, he went to Canada. With this, nothing's impossible, Alan. You just set your mind to it and do it.
So what was the motivation to immigrate to Canada? Just opportunity?
Yeah, opportunity.
Yeah.
He heard they were, I need to tell Trump this story, but he heard they were building cars in Hamilton, Ontario.
Okay.
And that's where the jobs were.
Yeah.
And so he gets on the boat and he goes and he makes friends, and he's got all these trophies and stuff from his races that he had won. So he's trading those for drinks, and he's trading them for food on the boat and then on the train, riding on the train. And he made friends with this guy. This guy, I think, knew that he had latched onto a winner.
Yeah.
And so they're riding along, and my dad said, Hamilton, that's where there's jobs, all kinds of jobs. And they fall asleep, they wake up, they look out the window of the train. There's a sign, Hamilton. Well, it wasn't Hamilton, Ontario. It was Hamilton Street in Neepawa, Manitoba.
Holy moly.
And he got a job. There's a guy in a hay rack going like this.
Yeah.
And he says to his buddy, hey, I think he's talking to us.
Yeah.
Well, he hopped up in the hay rack and said, you got two guys, my buddy and I. Okay. Took him out to a farm, dropped him off on a farm where there's a bunch of sheaves laying in the field.
Yeah.
He said, okay, I'll pick you up at dinner time.
Holy moly.
Well, my dad didn't know what the heck they were doing.
Right.
The other guy thought my dad knew, but neither of them knew. But fortunately, across the road from where they were sitting was another field with these sheaves, and they were stacked together. And so the rain would run out.
Eh? Yeah.
So they went and they took one apart. They said, well, what do we got to lose? Let's do it. So they did the whole damn field of sheaves. And the farmer came back and said, that's good. You get a hot meal and you can sleep in the barn. So that's how he started in Canada.
Jeez Louise.
But he started a soccer team, and he always had the philosophy, hey, doesn't matter who we're playing against, we're better than they are. You pick out the biggest guy in the opposing team, you run into him as early as you can. Just set the tone of the game. So that's a philosophy that me and my two brothers and my sister were brought up with, and that's the way it's been. And so when I came to Ames, Iowa, that's kind of the philosophy I had. How much do you need for artificial ice at Hilton Coliseum? Oh, probably at least $100,000. Okay, make the check out for $100,000. And so that was the start of it. Then we built another practice arena, and we got the Iowa Collegiate Hockey League going. We got the Big 8 conference at that time. We went out, we told Colorado we'd play them home and home, and that's how a lot of this stuff started. And Arizona, what a place to have an end of season tournament, but Arizona. Why? Because it was warm. It was nice out there. It's cold in Iowa.
So with all the stuff that you had accomplished prior to starting the ACHA, and to give credit where credit's due, there was a collection of people in the beginning.
Yep.
And you have been recognized because you were the first president.
Yep.
Right. And the trophy's named after you, which I think is incredibly appropriate. How much of an accomplishment did you feel, or how much history did you feel was being made once the ACHA was formed?
I thought the sky was the limit, and if they could just learn some of the stuff that I had learned from my father in building a program. So all of a sudden, we had 30, 40, 50 schools doing what I had done, but doing it as well, and in many cases better.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's 100, and then all of a sudden 150 schools, and then all of a sudden we got Division I and Division II, and then Division I, Division II, and Women's Division I, and then Division III and Women's 1 and 2. So 5 different divisions attracting. You walk around the building here, you see people with jackets on from all over the country, all over the world, and I absolutely love it.
Do you feel as you walk around and you see the players warming up and getting on the ice, and you see the games and you see the banners, do you almost have a sense of pride, almost like a father would, in seeing their child accomplish? Because you really are one of the founding fathers of this league. And I mean, sad probably is not the right word. The unfortunate thing is you walk around here and people don't even know who you are. They do not know how instrumental you are in doing what we're doing today in 2025. But do you have that sense of pride?
Oh, you bet. You bet. The other thing about my dad, he could talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime. So I've inherited that. I can walk around here and I can say hello to people. I talked to a guy and had lunch with him today who's, I think, doing some work selling shirts and stuff. And, for me, that's the reward, seeing people accomplish things that, they never dreamed they could, and having the inspiration to go even further. I don't know where the years have gone. The years have slipped by just a little bit. I was a young whippersnapper in my mid-20s when I came to Iowa State, and my next birthday will be my last birthday in my 70s, 79 if you want to do the math. But I still get excited. I get excited that our organization will invite me to come to these events and shake hands and have a pop with them. And I still appreciate their attitude of being able to be involved.
With women being involved, with men's 1, 2, and 3, women's 1 and 2, In your wildest dreams, did you ever think that it would get this huge?
I didn't think it would get this huge, but we were part of an organization that could open up pockets of players and pockets of fans and pockets of sponsors all over the country. It was just unbelievable. I played some college hockey at Brandon University in Manitoba, and I go home and I figure, well, maybe I could help them a little bit too. They've dropped the damn program. There's so many educational organizations that they don't know what hockey is, they don't understand it, and they're frightened by it. So we crossed that road, but I just convinced people what my dad convinced me of. Hey, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Just go after it. Assume consent.
Yeah. One thing that you and I have in common, despite our love of the game, we have pursued higher education. You're a PhD in kinesiology. You were a college professor. How much do you really cling to and love the role that hockey has played in some of some of these student athletes that we encounter? They're like, oh, you know what? I hadn't heard about the ACHA, but it was an opportunity for me to play hockey, and now it's the vehicle that gets them to a university degree. I mean, that's if someone asked me really why. I mean, because for me, higher education's changed my life. It'll change the life of my kid. Yeah. It'll change the pathway of the Clan McGibbon for years to come. In the back of your mind, has that always been, because here's the thing, to get a PhD, you got to love education. Tell me about the players that you've encountered, guys that you've been involved with before that have come back to you and say, hey, coach, thank you so much because I got an education that I may not have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, no question about it. I still get emails, we're in the technology age, and letters and notes about things that my players that played for me carried over. Get an education, do the right stuff, and has an impact on their communities and building rinks and growing programs and fundraising and all that goes along with it. So I'm really proud of that. And, my dad, another thing that he taught me was there's no place you can't go. You can go anywhere. I can remember I couldn't have been 5 or 6 years old. He took me into the Brandon Wheat Kings dressing room prior to the game. And he's walking around with me and he said, these are the players and they're pretty good. And the players must have thought, shit, this must be one of the owners or something. Yeah. They treated him with great respect. And he said, okay, go out there and kick their arse and let it happen from there. So I've done the same thing. I go around and I talk to people here and say good things about them and their involvement, and that their involvement is more important than they realize. And so all of a sudden I'm seeing parents who are going, oh, you're right. For a while I was just kind of hoping, my son or daughter would just get a degree and go on with their life. But they get hooked, and they're hooked for the rest of their life, just like I am.
How important is it that the people that are involved as players with the ACHA leave the ACHA with the mindset of looking for opportunities in the future to get re-involved in another capacity?
There's no question in my mind that we're developing leaders of the future. We could go on for days about the current situation of politics in the United States, but they need some guys that are hockey oriented just to be able to step in and do the right thing and do it correctly and do it honestly. Yeah. Very, very important to me, and I think very important to all the teams that vie to be at this national tournament.
So you look at, 91, 92 was the first season. So we are finishing up our 33rd season of ACHA. You've been involved long before that. Give me top 3 proudest moments for you. I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but give me. Yeah.
Top 3 proudest moments. Going to the national championships of the ACHA and winning the national tournament. That would be one of the top ones. Another one is going to the World University Games and playing against teams from other countries, and knowing that the team that was picked to be the best, the Russians, they're just like anybody else. I was fortunate enough, I worked with a university in Canada, and had the opportunity to travel with them because I was Canadian to Russia to study hockey. And then they invited me to come back a second time and teach some classes. And even the Russians were in awe that I have this knowledge, and education was a big part of it.
Sure.
So I've had some great opportunities, and I see other people, the executive board of the ACHA right now, unbelievably good at that, getting people involved, getting them to get people with an education, and being leaders of the future. We need to have a few of them take over this country here and run it the right way.
Before we go, tell me about your grandson, come full circle, involved with the ACHA. Tell me just a bit about that.
That would be Andrew.
Andrew, okay.
Yeah, Andrew went through the minor hockey program, played junior hockey in the U.S. and also in Canada.
Okay.
And then went through the routine where my oldest son, went through that same routine and visited 3 pretty prestigious schools and ended up going to Brown University. My youngest son, I thought he was just as smart academically and just as good a hockey player. I said, well, go visit some of the schools that your brother Sean visited and come back and let me know how it's going to go. And he came back and said, well, I made my decision, Dad. I said, okay, where are you going? I'm going to go to Iowa State because I want to play for the best damn coach in the country. That's the Murdoch deal.
Very good. Well, Al, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for the stories.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for everything you do. This trophy named after Al. Rasty McGibbon, Al Murdoch, 2025 National Championship.